My mom gave us an envelope with cash at my wedding. Everyone clapped. She kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "See, I told you I'd take care of you." That same night, after the guests were gone, she knocked on our hotel door and asked for the money back. Sounds fake, I know. But it happened. And the thing is, it wasn't even about the money. It was about what the money represented. Let me rewind. The wedding wasn't huge. Around 80 guests, mostly family, a handful of close friends. We didn't want anything flashy, just something warm, honest, something that felt like us. I wore a simple dress, Ryan wore a navy suit. We rented a small rustic venue outside town. We were happy. My mom, on the other hand, wasn't. She had always pictured herself as the center of attention, the glamorous mother of the bride, dripping in approval from everyone else's eyes. She hated the simplicity. She kept saying, "It looks cheap, Julia. People will think we couldn't afford better." I shrugged it off. Because honestly, I didn't care. I just wanted to marry Ryan. But of course, my mom found her way to the spotlight. Right after dinner, when the music softened and everyone raised their glasses, she walked up to us holding a crisp white envelope. The photographer hovered like he'd been told in advance. She pressed the envelope into my hand, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is our gift to you. A little help to start your new life." Gasps, applause, the whole cliché. People nodded approvingly. My mom beamed like she just donated to charity in front of a TV crew. I smiled, I hugged her because what else could I do? Inside I was confused. Because here's the truth. My mom never gives money. She takes. She borrows. She criticizes. But gifts? Never. Still, the cameras flashed. Relatives congratulated her for being so generous. And for a brief second I thought maybe this time is different. Maybe she really wants to support us. I slipped the envelope into my bag and tried not to think about it. Hours later, after the reception, after the dancing, after Ryan and I stumbled into our hotel room exhausted but giddy, there was a knock on the door. I thought it was room service. Ryan thought maybe it was one of his drunk groomsmen. It was my mom. Lipstick smudged, hair coming loose, eyes sharp. She stepped inside without asking and went straight to the point. "Julia, give me back the envelope. It was just for the pictures." Ryan froze. I froze. And that was the moment I realized my wedding gift wasn't a gift at all. It was a performance. And I was the prop. Ryan looked at me like he'd misheard. "Wait, what?" he asked, his voice half laugh, half shock. Mom crossed her arms. "Julia, don't be difficult. That was just for the photos. People expect it. You know how family talks. If I didn't give something big, they'd whisper I'm stingy. So, of course I had to show them." She held out her hand like I was a cashier and she was settling a receipt. I just stared. Hours earlier, she had been glowing in front of everyone, soaking in praise for being the generous mother. Now she was peeling off the mask, revealing exactly what I'd always known. It was never about me. It was about her image. Ryan broke the silence. "Are you serious? You made a show of giving us money you didn't intend to give?" Mom's lips tightened. "Don't make a scene. You already got your wedding. Don't push it. Hand me the envelope." My bag was sitting by the nightstand. I could see the corner of the envelope sticking out, white against the fabric. For a second, I actually considered giving it back just to avoid the fight. That's the hold she's always had on me. Decades of conditioning, swallowing my anger to keep the peace. But then I looked at Ryan. His jaw was clenched, his hands balled into fists at his sides. This was his first real taste of what it meant to be part of my family. And I hated that his first night as my husband was being hijacked by the same woman who had hijacked every milestone in my life. I spoke quietly. "No." Her eyes widened, like she couldn't believe I'd said it. She actually laughed. "Julia, don't be ridiculous. You think that's your money? It's mine. I just loaned it to you for 5 minutes." My chest was burning. Memories flashed like lightning. Birthday parties where she gave me gifts, only to return them to the store the next day for cash. Christmas mornings where she complained that I didn't look grateful enough. The college fund she promised existed but never did. Ryan stepped closer. "You humiliated her enough today. You're not getting it back." Mom's face changed in an instant, smile gone, eyes narrowing, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You don't talk to me like that. You don't understand how this family works." I almost laughed because for the first time in my life I saw it clearly. The performance, the manipulation, the way she crafted an image for the world while draining me dry in private. And something cracked inside me. I do understand, I said. I understand perfectly. Her hand was still outstretched, waiting for me to fold. I didn't move. Ryan didn't move. The silence in that small hotel room was heavier than the whole day of vows and speeches. Finally, she dropped her hand. You'll regret this. And then she walked out, slamming the door so hard the mirror rattled. Ryan turned to me. Is this normal? I sank onto the edge of the bed. You have no idea. We didn't sleep much that night. Not because of wedding night nerves or champagne or excitement. Because the whole evening had been poisoned by her. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the envelope still in my bag like a ticking bomb. Ryan kept asking me variations of the same question. Has she always been like this? And I kept answering the same way, yes. You just saw it for the first time without the wrapping paper. The morning after, we met my parents for brunch. At least that was the plan. When we walked into the restaurant, Mom was already there, sitting upright, smiling so widely it looked painful. She waved us over like nothing had happened. Darlings. Newlyweds. She sang, kissing the air near our cheeks. Dad sat beside her, silent, flipping through the menu as if it held the secret to surviving the apocalypse. I sat down, my pulse still hammering. Ryan sat stiffly, clearly bracing for another round. Mom leaned forward. So, about the envelope. Ryan actually groaned. I cut her off. It's ours. Her smile faltered for half a second, then came back sharper. Julia, don't embarrass yourself. You don't need it. It was just symbolic. Symbolic. That word landed like a stone in my gut, because I realized in her mind I was symbolic too. My wedding wasn't about me being happy. It was about her looking like the kind of mother people applauded. Ryan cleared his throat. Do you realize how cruel that is? To dangle something in front of your daughter just so people can clap? Mom waved her hand like he was a child interrupting grown-ups. Cruel? Don't exaggerate. I gave her a beautiful wedding, didn't I? I snapped. You didn't give me anything. You criticized the dress, you complained about the food, and now you want your gift back. You didn't do this for me. You did it so people would talk about how generous you are. The table went still. Dad finally looked up, his eyes darting between us like he'd just woken up in a minefield. Enough, he muttered. We're in public. Mom's smile vanished completely now. Her eyes hardened. I raised you. You should be grateful. Don't talk to me like I'm some kind of stranger. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time, because that was the problem. She'd never really been a mother. She'd been an audience, and I'd been her unwilling performer. I pushed my chair back. I'm done. Ryan followed without a word. We left her sitting there, napkin clenched in her fist, while Dad pretended to keep reading the menu. Out on the sidewalk, Ryan slipped his hand into mine. His voice was low. You know this isn't going to end here. And I knew he was right, because when my mom doesn't get her way, she doesn't stop. She escalates. And she was just getting started. By the time we got back to our apartment after the honeymoon weekend, my phone looked like it had been in a war zone. 42 missed calls. 19 voicemails. Endless texts. All from her. The first one sounded sweet, almost apologetic. Julia, honey, let's not fight. Give me a call, okay? Then they turned sharper. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Do you realize what people will say? And finally, the mask dropped completely. You're selfish. After all I've done for you, you think you can just humiliate me? You'll see what happens. Ryan listened to one voicemail, shook his head, and handed the phone back. She's not going to let this go. He was right, because then came the group chat. My extended family's WhatsApp thread lit up like a Christmas tree. Photos from the wedding, congratulations emojis. Then her message. We gave Julia a significant amount of money at the wedding. It was only meant as a symbolic gesture, but she's refusing to return it. We're heartbroken at her ingratitude. I read it 3 times, my stomach dropping each time further. She wasn't just coming after me in private. She was rewriting the story publicly, turning me into the villain. Replies started rolling in. So disrespectful. After everything your parents did for you? Family is family, Julia. Don't be greedy. No one asked for my side. No one paused to wonder why a mother would demand her wedding gift back. They just accepted her version, because she'd been spinning these narratives my whole life. Ryan wanted to fire back instantly. Let's post the truth. Tell them exactly what happened. But I knew how this game worked. My mom wasn't after the truth. She was after control. And the more you defended yourself, the more she painted you as hysterical. Still, something inside me shifted. Because for the first time I wasn't just swallowing it. I wasn't alone. Ryan was watching it unfold too, seeing her tactics with fresh eyes. And instead of doubting me, he was furious on my behalf. That night, lying in bed with the phone buzzing like an angry hornet nest on the nightstand, I made a decision. I wasn't going to play her game anymore. No more defending. No more explaining. But I wasn't just going to stay silent either. If she wanted to drag me into the spotlight, then fine. I'd let everyone see the whole picture. And I had more than enough stories to tell. The thing about weddings is they don't just unite two people. They also drag every ghost of your childhood into the room, dressed up and smiling, pretending they belong at the party. As I lay awake that night, staring at the buzzing phone, memories started bleeding through. I was 6 when I first learned that my mother's gifts weren't really gifts. She bought me a doll for Christmas, wrapped in shiny silver paper. I loved it so much I carried it everywhere. 2 days later she took it back, said it was too expensive for me to play with, and returned it for store credit. I cried for hours. She told me I was ungrateful. At 13, she gave me a necklace for my birthday. It was beautiful, a tiny gold chain with a heart. She made a big deal about it at the party, clapping when I opened it, telling everyone how much she sacrificed to buy it. A week later, she borrowed it to wear to a dinner, and never gave it back. When I asked, she said, "Don't be selfish, Julia. It looks better on me." By the time I was in college, I should have been immune. But still she found ways. She promised to pay part of my tuition, bragged about it to the relatives, then quietly forgot when the bill came. I had to take extra shifts at work to cover the gap. When I confronted her, she said, "You're independent. You should be proud. I gave you character." Every single milestone, she dressed herself in generosity and left me with the bill. So really the envelope at the wedding wasn't new. It was just the same old pattern, wrapped in white satin and applause. But here's the difference. I wasn't a child anymore. I wasn't alone. Ryan had seen it. He'd heard her demand the money back with his own ears. He'd read the texts, the twisting of the story. And he didn't doubt me for a second. That terrified her. Because my whole life she'd survived by controlling the narrative. By convincing me that maybe I misunderstood, maybe I was dramatic, maybe it wasn't as bad as I remembered. But Ryan's presence shattered that spell. "Why do you let her talk to you like this?" he asked me the next morning. The question hit me like a slap. Because I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Just decades of habit, fear. And that endless hunger for approval from someone who would never give it. I looked at him, my throat tight. Maybe I don't anymore. And that was the first time I said it out loud. I didn't have to keep playing her game. I didn't know what that meant yet. But the words were out, like a seed cracking through concrete. And seeds, once planted, have a way of growing. By midweek, the group chat had turned into a firing squad. "Aunt Carol. Julia, your poor mother only tried to help you. Why are you humiliating her?" "Uncle Mike. Ingratitude runs deep. Don't forget who paid for your piano lessons." Cousin Rachel, who hadn't spoken to me in 3 years. "If my mom gave me that kind of money, I'd treat her like a queen." Ryan scrolled through the messages beside me, his jaw tight. They actually believe this? All of them? I laughed bitterly. Of course they do. They've believed her my whole life. Because my mom had always been the storyteller. She spun every situation into a tale where she was the martyr, the saint, the misunderstood heroine. And I was always cast as the selfish, ungrateful daughter. The family bought it because it was easier than questioning her. But this time she miscalculated. Because unlike all the other moments she rewrote, this one had an audience outside of her control. Ryan. His parents. My friends who'd been at the wedding. They'd seen her parade the envelope, heard her words, watched her demand it back. And their silence on the group chat was telling. Ryan's mom texted me privately that afternoon. We saw what happened. You don't owe her anything. Don't let her twist this. For the first time in days, I exhaled. Someone believed me. That night, another wave of texts hit. This time directly from my mom. I can't believe you're dragging the whole family into this. You're making me look like a fool. Return the money and I'll tell them it was a misunderstanding. I stared at the last message until my vision blurred. A misunderstanding. That was her favorite word. She'd used it every time she'd broken a promise, insulted me, or taken something back. You misunderstood. Don't be dramatic. That's not what I meant. But this time it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a performance captured by cameras, applauded by relatives, and then snatched back in the dark. I typed one sentence and hit send. It's not about the money. It's about respect. And you've never given me any. Her reply came instantly. Watch your tone. Family is family. I dropped the phone onto the bed and whispered to Ryan. She doesn't get it. She'll never get it. He pulled me into his chest. Then maybe it's time you stop trying to make her. And in that moment I realized he was right. The war wasn't about the envelope. It was about control. And I wasn't going to surrender anymore. The next Saturday, she showed up at our apartment. No warning. No invitation. Just a knock on the door, sharp and fast like a debt collector. Ryan opened it before I could stop him. She swept in, perfume first, her heels clicking against the hardwood. She carried herself like a queen entering enemy territory, chin high, eyes scanning for weakness. Julia, she said, voice sugar-coated. We need to talk. I didn't stand up from the couch. There's nothing left to talk about. Her smile froze. Don't be ridiculous. Families argue, they forgive, they move on. Hand me the envelope and we'll forget this whole thing ever happened. Ryan crossed his arms. You're not getting it back. She glared at him like he was a stray dog barking too loudly. This is between me and my daughter. Stay out of it. But that was the thing, he wasn't out of it. He was my husband now. And she hated that. I finally stood, my legs shaking but my voice steady. You humiliated me. In front of everyone. And when you thought no one was watching, you tried to take it all back. That's not love. That's theater. Her face darkened. You're ungrateful. After all the sacrifices I made. I cut her off. Sacrifices? You mean the ones you paraded in front of people but never actually gave? You mean the promises you dangled and then snatched away? If that's sacrifice, I don't want it. The silence in the room was sharp enough to slice through skin. Her eyes flicked to Ryan, then back to me. You've changed, she hissed. I nodded. Yes, I have. And I meant it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't shrinking under her voice. I wasn't bending to her rules. Ryan stepped closer to me, his hand brushing mine, grounding me. You need to leave, he said firmly. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. And maybe she didn't. Because I wasn't the obedient daughter anymore. I was the woman who finally saw through her. She grabbed her purse, muttered something about me regretting this, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. We stood in the quiet, the echo of her footsteps still hanging in the air. My heart pounded, my palms slick with sweat. But underneath it all there was something new. Relief. I whispered it out loud, more to myself than to Ryan. She doesn't own me anymore. And for the first time I actually believed it. It took less than 24 hours for her to start rewriting the story. A cousin sent me screenshots from Facebook. A long post with my wedding photos splashed across the top. The caption read, "Sometimes children forget everything you've done for them. Sometimes they take your generosity and throw it back in your face. I only ever wanted the best for Julia, but she's chosen to cut ties with her own family over money. Pray for us." The comments piled in. Heartbreaking. Kids these days. You don't deserve this. Not one of them asked what had really happened. Not one of them wondered why a mother would demand her gift back. Ryan saw my face as I read. She's weaponizing pity. I nodded. She's always been good at that. Because that was her art form, turning herself into the victim. I could almost admire the consistency if it hadn't cost me my sanity for 30 years. But then something unexpected happened. A different cousin, one I barely talked to, commented under the post. Wasn't at the wedding, but I heard she gave them an envelope and asked for it back the same night. Is that true? No likes. No replies. Just silence. That silence spoke louder than the chorus of sympathy. It meant cracks were forming. People were whispering, doubting. And for someone like my mother, doubt was poison. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. A message from her. Delete the lies your friends are spreading. You're embarrassing the family. If you love me at all, fix this. I stared at the words, my chest tightening. That old reflex tugged at me, the one that made me want to explain, defend, beg her to see reason. But then Ryan placed his hand over mine. Don't answer. So I didn't. Instead, I opened the group chat, scrolled past the endless guilt-soaked messages, and typed one sentence. The money was never a gift. She demanded it back the same night. Believe what you want, but that's the truth. Then I muted the chat. For the first time in my life, I didn't wait for their approval. I didn't watch to see who believed me and who didn't. I just sat back on the couch, leaned my head on Ryan's shoulder and breathed. It felt like cutting a string that had been pulling me tight for decades. And I wasn't falling. I was free falling. For weeks after that, the silence was deafening. No more calls from her. No more voicemails dripping with guilt. No more cousins lecturing me about family. The group chat went quiet. Even my dad, who usually stayed out of everything, didn't reach out. At first, the quiet felt wrong, like the moment before a storm. I kept waiting for her to reappear. For another knock on the door, another Facebook post, another dramatic stunt. But nothing came. And slowly, the silence started to feel different. Less like a warning. More like a gift. I noticed things I hadn't in years. My apartment actually felt calm. My mornings weren't hijacked by angry texts. Ryan and I laughed more. Cooked dinner without my phone buzzing nonstop. Talked about real plans instead of surviving her chaos. One night, as we folded laundry, Ryan said, "Do you realize this is the first month we've had without her drama?" I blinked. He was right. And it hit me how much space she had taken in my life. How much energy I'd wasted tiptoeing around her moods, her lies, her endless need for control. But freedom has a strange aftertaste. Along with relief came grief. Because even though she'd hurt me again and again, a small part of me still wanted a mother. Not the woman who staged fake generosity, but the one I used to imagine when I was little, the one who would be proud of me, protect me, love me without conditions. That mother never existed. And accepting that was harder than cutting her off. One Sunday, my phone lit up with a notification. Her name. For a second, my stomach dropped. But it wasn't a message. It was a memory suggestion from Facebook. Photos of the wedding, her smiling with the envelope in her hand. I stared at the image. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just clarity. Because that picture was the perfect metaphor. She looked like she was giving. But she wasn't. It was always an act. I turned off the screen, placed the phone face down, and whispered almost to myself, "I'm done being her stage." Ryan looked over from the kitchen. "What did you say?" I smiled faintly. "Nothing. Just the truth." And in the quiet that followed, I realized the silence wasn't empty. It was space. Space I could finally fill with my own life. 3 months later, I got a wedding card in the mail. Not from her. From an aunt who had skipped the ceremony but wanted to make it up. Inside was a short note. "Families are complicated. Don't let anyone make you doubt yourself. I'm proud of you." There was no money tucked inside, no performance, no strings. Just words. Honest ones. It almost made me cry. Because it reminded me what real support looked like. Quiet. Simple. Without cameras or applause. Meanwhile, my mother kept her distance. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. But I heard through cousins that she was still telling her version of the story, that I'd stolen her generosity and disrespected her in front of everyone. Let her talk. I didn't feel the urge to defend myself anymore. Because people who want to believe her always will. And the people who matter, they've seen enough. Ryan and I opened the envelope one last time. Not because of the money, it wasn't a fortune, just enough to cover a couple months of rent, but because I wanted to decide what to do with it. We used it as a down payment on a used car. Our car. Not hers. Every mile we drove felt like a reclamation. A reminder that her attempt to control me had, ironically, given me the key to leave her orbit. One evening as we drove with the windows down, Ryan reached over and squeezed my hand. You know you broke the cycle, right? I turned to him, hair whipping in the wind. What do you mean? He smiled. She'll never own your life again. And if we ever have kids, they'll never grow up thinking love is a performance. I swallowed hard. 'Cause that was it, wasn't it? That was the real inheritance she tried to pass on, the endless need to perform, to please, to bend. And I'd finally rejected it. So here's the truth. The money didn't matter. The wedding didn't matter. The envelope was just a prop in a play she'd been directing since I was born. What mattered was that I finally walked off the stage. And once you do that, there's no going back. I don't know if my mother and I will ever speak again. Maybe someday she'll try. Maybe not. But I do know this. My life is quieter now, clearer, sharper. And silence after a lifetime of noise feels a lot like freedom.